What is up, guys? Welcome back to episode 4 of the Foundations of Faith podcast. Today, we talked about testimony, prayer, and quiet time the last 3 weeks. Today, we're going to talk about idleness, okay? So when you think about something being idle, what do you think of? Do you think of, for me, since, I'm 19, I think of being in a video game and just being idle, standing there, not doing it. But what do you think of? What do you think of whenever someone says idle? Well, the dictionary definition of idle is to stay still, to ponder, or to not act. They're all definitions of the word idle. And you see, we can apply idleness to the church because idleness is something that the church struggles with. It's something that all churches struggle with. You have, oftentimes there are members who come to church, they go through the routine, and then they leave and do not apply it. They're idle. And they just go to just check that box off of their daily routine or their weekly routine to say that they did it. Now, sure, they're coming to church. That's great. That's great that they're coming to church. That's great that they're hearing God's word. They sing a few songs. They read some verses. But when they step out of the church, what are they like? When they step out of the church, do they act the same way that they act in church? Or do they completely drop the whole act? And oftentimes we see that people drop the whole act. They go back to the ways of the world rather than the ways of church. See, people tend to go to church and think of it as a vacation, a one-day vacation where all they have to do is just worship God, They think of it as just a one-day thing, when in reality, it's not a one-day thing. It is a day-by-day thing. Jesus tells us to take up our cross daily. So being a one-off Christian is something that we struggle with. And oftentimes people get into this place of idleness and they get into this place of just resting in just complete, they don't act. They don't act on their faith. And the worshiping, the devotion, and the relationship with God, it stands still. It stands still whenever we leave the doors to this building. And that is one of the biggest problems that we have. And the things that we can boil that down to is a lot of times we are more faithful to the building than we are to the person who we're worshiping in the building. We're more faithful to the building than we are to God. We're more faithful to walking in here every Sunday, every Wednesday, whatever you want. But we're not faithful to having that relationship with Christ every single day. And that's what's so important. What's so important is having that relationship every single day with Christ. We cannot be one-off Christians. And we're more worried about what happens outside the church rather than what happens inside the church. And this creates a sort of instability within our relationship with God because there's no relationship being formed. There's no relationship being cultivated. It's, like I said, we're one-off Christians. We are one-off Christians who are just looking to glorify God in that one time a day. In my case, from 11 o'clock to 12:30 or 6:30 to 8 o'clock if you're going on Wednesdays. We're one-off Christians. A lot of people are one-off Christians. So with that being said, there's a difference between being a Christian and having a relationship with God. I hear all the time, I go to church, so I have a relationship with God. Do you? Do you really? Because I'm pretty sure, and I'm not one to judge, but I'm pretty sure that you're the same one cussing every 5 seconds in class. I'm pretty sure that you're the one going and doing this. And like I said, I'm not judging. I'm just saying, whenever you have a relationship with God, you won't be doing those things. You'll be more inclined to live by the ways that he provided, not by the ways of the world, which is what you're presenting in your day-to-day life. And that's where idleness comes into play. Because when we're idle, we tend to do those things. And that's a trap that we will dig. It's a hole that we will dig deeper and deeper until we pull ourselves away from God. And I know it because I've done it. I've gone through the whole walk. But like I said, there's a difference between being a Christian and having a relationship with God. And unfortunately, spiritual instability has become an epidemic in our country. It's become an epidemic around the world. we just, like I said, we just continuously just go to church just to go. We don't go to foster a relationship with God. We don't go to just gain just a overwhelming sense of joy. We go because we need to check off a box, and it's because what our parents told us to do. It's because I live in the Bible Belt. I live in Tennessee. When you're raised on go to church on Sundays, go to, do this, that, follow the Lord's Prayer. Me personally, I wasn't raised in a family that did that, but that is what is the main area around here. If you go in the South, If you live in the South, that is the main stipulation of being in the South. You better be going to church on Sundays. But as I've grown up, and like I said, I'm only 19 years old, I've seen that drastically dip. Church attendance has dipped over 70% in some areas of the country. California barely has any main church attendance anymore. And I'm sorry if you live in California. We love y'all. We love everybody. But that's been a main area. Toward the west, it's dropping drastically. In the South, it's dropping. And that says something. Whenever the South is built on the Bible Belt, it's called the Bible Belt. And it's drastically changing. That just shows that there's a spiritual epidemic going on in our country. And it has to be, it's been more popular to call ourselves a Christian rather than actually follow Christ. Like I said, I live in the Bible Belt. Whenever you say, oh, I'm not I don't really go to church, people are going to look at you funny. That's just how it is. And, like I said, I'm not one to judge or anything, but whenever you're in the South, you're expected to go to church. And really everywhere is expected to go to church, but I'm just saying generalize. It's more popular to call yourselves a Christian rather than actually follow God. And that is where idleness comes into play. Because you're calling yourself one thing, you're acting another. You're not stoking that fire to follow Jesus. You're not living how a Christian should live. You're not representing Christ with your actions is what you're claiming to be. And that's the definition of spiritual instability. But a relationship with God is not something that you can just claim to have. It's either you do or you don't. There is no in between. You can't be a lukewarm Christian. You can't be a one-off Christian. You can't go to church every 1 out of 4 weeks and claim that you have a great relationship with Christ. That's not how it works. We have to be fully involved in a relationship with Christ. We have to be going to church. We have to be in his word every single day. We got to be praying to him every single day. And you might be doing that going on. I don't know your circumstances going once a month. You could have something else going on. But it's just a generalized. But it's not something that you can just claim to have. You have to have it or you don't. You're either idle or you're active. So let's read here in 2 Thessalonians 3, verses 6 through 10. It says, "Now we command you, brothers, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you keep away from any brother who is walking in idleness, and not in accord with the tradition that you received from us. For you yourselves know how you ought to imitate us, because we were not idle when we were with you, nor did we eat anyone's bread without paying for it. But with toil and labor we worked night and day, that we might not be a burden to any of you. It was not because we did not have the right, but to give you in ourselves an example to imitate. For even when we were with you, we would give you this command: if anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat." Okay? So Paul is talking to the people of Thessalonica. And he's warning them about this idleness that has been present in their church and in their area. And he's telling them, stay away from the people who are idle. Stay away from the people who are idle. And that's the first point. Stay away from the people who are idle. It's pretty plain and simple. Paul lays it out right here. He says, you ought to imitate us because we were not idle when we were with you. Paul and Timothy and Silvanus, they were all together in this. They were all together and they were showing the Thessalonians how to do this, how to stay away. And whenever they were with the people of Thessalonica, they were deep in spiritual coalition with God. They were deep in a connection with God, and they showed that to the Thessalonians. And you see Paul here, he's telling them, you saw what we were doing. You saw how we were praising God. You saw how our relationships are. Imitate us rather than the people who are idle. And in all truth, the people around you can and will affect your relationship with Christ. If you're around people who are idle, chances are you're going to be idle, because they start to rub off on you. They start to, their everyday worldly views, their everyday whatever is going into you every single day. But on the contrary, if you're around people who are active in their relationship with God, chances are you're going to be active. Now, granted, that's all up to you in a decision, but let me tell you from a personal experience, you're going to want to hang around people who are active. I love my high school friends to death. I do. But the second that I got that call to ministry, I love them to death, but, not the crowd that I want to hang around as much as I did. I still hang out with them. I love them to death, like I said, but I don't hang out with them as much because I start to see their actions rub off onto me. And it's true, whenever I started hanging out with my church crowd now, whenever I got that call to ministry, it rubs off on me. I'm striving for God every single day, and I have people to do it with me. So stay away from the people who are idle, because we adapt to the people around us because it creates a sense of comfort and belonging. Everybody wants to belong. Everybody wants to adapt. We want to fit into the crowd, especially, which I know high schoolers and middle schoolers, they definitely want to, specifically middle school and high school. But even adults want to fit into the workplace environment. They want to fit into the day-to-day lives of their people around them. And that's where we get this adaptation to the people around us. We get this adaptation, and it is very important that you adapt to the right people. It is very important that you adapt to the people of Christ rather than the people of the world. Because if you rely on people who are idle, you will not see what God is offering for you. You will not see what he has for you because you're so caught up in what the other people are doing, what the other people are rubbing off on you. The people of the world are rubbing off on you, that you're missing what God has for you with the people who are active in their relationships. And I'm not telling you to stay away. Well, Paul is. I'm not telling you that you have to completely get rid of the people. I'm saying pick who you choose to hang around very, very carefully. So 2 Thessalonians 3:6 says, "Now we command you, brothers, in the name of our Lord Jesus Christ, that you keep away from any brother who is walking in idleness and not accord with the tradition that you receive from us." So, I already explained it. He's writing to the church in Thessalonica, and he knows about the actions of some of them. He knows that they're claiming to follow Jesus, but they're acting a completely different way on the side. He knows that. So he lays that out for us right here, and he said we should not follow those people. We should not follow the people who are claiming to know Jesus and are not following Jesus right behind him, who are not trying to be a disciple of Jesus, who are idle in their faith. Because those people will lead you to idleness because them themselves are idle. I feel like I'm talking really fast. But they will lead you down a road to idleness, and that is dangerous. That is a dead-end road that will get you in a whole lot of trouble. That will get you in a place that you feel like you can't get out of. It will not strengthen your relationship with God, which should be our overall goal. You see, this road, it's not a road that you will continue to drive down. It's a road that will keep you still. Everything around you is moving, but you're standing still. That's what idleness is. That's what idleness feels like in a relationship with God. You see God is moving, but you're standing still. That's idleness. And idleness is so dangerous. And I know that God says be still, but he didn't mean this kind of still, okay? in Psalm 46:10, it says, "Be still and know that I am God." Well, when we have God, there's a sense of calmness that comes in our lives. Not idleness, okay? Not idleness. Whenever it says, "Be still and know that I am God," it doesn't mean physically be still. It means be still and know that he is God, because you have a calmness. You are able to understand that he holds the power of your life. He will lead you no matter the situation. Give it to God. That's what it's saying. It's not saying be idle in your relationship with God. You see, idleness is the cause of a lacking relationship with God. Idleness is that dead-end road that we end up on that leads us further and further away from the main road where God is trying to take us. And it's a scary place. It's scary. It's terrifying, because we're going against what our Father has for us. We're trying to depend on ourselves rather than God. We're trying to depend on the things of the world rather than God. We're idle in our relationship with him. And the first step to avoiding that is staying away from people who are idle. Stay away from people who limit your potential with God, and be active. Be active in your relationship with God. Because he's just waiting. He's waiting for you to call out his name, to read what he has wrote, to pray to him. That is what he is waiting for. So be active. You may be questioning, how do you do that? Imitate the people who are active. Paul laid it out there. We already explained that. There's someone in your life. There's someone in your church. There's someone in the room, hopefully. This was a sermon, so ignore that part. But there's someone in your life or in the church that is active in their relationship with Christ, that is pursuing a relationship with Christ, that wants to glorify him, that wants to be a disciple for him. And I know a handful of people that I can depend on who are doing that. Actually, I know more than a handful. It's all about finding those people, because God placed those people in front of you for a reason. And that reason is to cultivate a relationship with him. You cannot do this alone. You cannot do this by yourself. And having a group or having another person that you can look for guidance for a relationship with Christ is so crucial. It's so crucial, because God places people in front of you for a reason. Now that can they can either be a test or a guide. It depends on the person. The test are the people who are idle. The guides are the people who are following Christ. The guides love Jesus. The guides love Jesus with all of their heart, and they strive to know him more. They want to know what he said. They want to know who he is and what he can bring to the table. They want to feel his love. They want to feel his love. And you know what they can bring to the table? They want to take a seat at his table. We're called to follow the guides. They are active in their journey with Christ. They are active in pursuing him. So follow the guides. Like I said, Paul says it. He says it right here. He says, "For you yourselves know how you ought to imitate us, because we were not idle when we were with you." We were not idle when we were with you. There's people who set examples of what following Christ is. That could be your preacher, your small group leader, people in your day-to-day work life. Follow the guides that are leading you to Christ. Do not follow the tests. Do not let yourself get into a place where you're going to be idle, because it will lead you further and further down a path that you don't want to go down. I promise you. We should strive to imitate the guides. The guides have the right mindset. Their mindset, follow Jesus. Follow Jesus and lead people to him. That is what a guide does, right? A guide leads people to a certain place. The guides are there to help you, and the guides are not idle. The guides are active. So if you want to be closer with Jesus, You need to mirror the actions of the guides. And I'm not saying mirror their every move. I'm saying mirror their walk with Christ. And everybody's walk with Christ is different, but mirror the steps that it takes to actually follow Christ. Because I promise you, you can tell whenever somebody's following Christ. So ask them about their walk. Ask them what happened in their lives. Ask them their testimony. Ask them their prayer life, their quiet time life. Ask them what it takes to follow Christ and do it. Follow the guides, guys. Mirror the steps to know him and understand him. This is how a relationship is formed. This is how your relationship with God prospers, because you're following the steps that it takes to glorify him and to know him. It's your job to make it prosper. And one of the first steps to making it prosper is finding people who are chasing after the same thing. If you're not surrounding yourself with people who are chasing after God, you're not facilitating your relationship to prosper, because it's going to tear you further and further away. And I know for specifically the youth watching this, adults, this also applies to you. Your friends now will probably not be your friends whenever you turn to Jesus, if you haven't already. Unless they are also chasing after God, you will not want to be their friend. Or you will not want to hang out with them as much. I promise you that, because Jesus changes everything. He changes your whole mindset whenever he has you. Whenever you have Jesus, it is a whole different mindset that is present. It's a whole different mindset. It's your job to make it prosper. Use your guides as a reference for that. And like I already said, following Jesus is so much easier when you have people who love God just as much as you do. It's so much easier to follow people who love God. It's so much easier to follow Jesus whenever you have people beside you. Whenever they are active and they're surrounding you, I promise you, you're going to be active. Idleness is so dangerous. It's so dangerous. But the people who are active encourage you to chase after God. They're active. They want everybody else to be active. If you're following Jesus, you're called to be a disciple. You're called to bring people to the church. And that is where active comes into place, because we're trying to pull people in. We're not trying to push people away. Now, that's not an easy task. It's not by any means an easy task. You will have people who will look at you and laugh in your face. And I'm not going to this episode, I'm not sugarcoating anything. I'm going all serious. Like I said, this was a sermon, so I'm going all serious. But I'm not sugarcoating this. It's not an easy task. It's not. It's not going to be easy. Your walk with Christ is not going to be easy. You're going to face people who are going to be different from you, who are going to view different things, and who are going to look at you and laugh in your face. You're going to see people who will literally just be so, I don't even know the word to use, honestly, but who will just constantly say they are a Christian, but then go do things of the world. You will see that, and you will get so upset by that. And you know, sometimes you want to talk to them about it. Sometimes you want to go off on them about it. We're supposed to be loving. We have to love people. And it's not an easy task to chase. It's not easy. It's not easy, because the world is out to get you. The world is out to get you. No matter who you are, what you're doing, how far you are in your walk with Christ, the devil is always trying to pull you further and further away from God. So coming out of that, you have to work for it. You have to work for a relationship with Christ. You're going to be challenged, and it's not going to be easy to stay away from the people who are idle. It's not going to be easy to stay away from the idleness of the world. But have you ever heard that saying that the work you put in is the work you get out? So if you put in a whole lot of effort to chase after God, if you put in the effort to flush out the things of the world, the bad music, the cussing, the hanging out with people, the doing drugs, drinking, whatever. If you flush that out, it is what you get out. You get out what you put in. So if you're barely longing to know God, if you're barely longing to know the Father, that's what you're going to get out. You're not going to have a relationship with God. But if you're striving to know you're striving to know God, if you want to know God, you have to put in effort. And if you put in that effort, he will in turn, your relationship with him will be so much greater than what it is if you are sitting in a place of idleness. Thessalonians 2 or 2 Thessalonians 3:10 says, "For even when we were with you, we would give you this command. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat." Emphasis on the last part. If anyone is not willing to work, let him not eat. If you're not going to work for a relationship with God, you're not going to reap the benefits of what a relationship with God has. You're not going to have that in your life. That is what the verse is saying. If you're not willing to work, you're not going to eat. If you're sitting idle in your faith, you're not going to reap the benefits of what God has for an active relationship with him. That is what that verse is saying. You have to work for it. You have to put in the effort to know who God is. It is so crucial to do just that. It is so crucial to follow after God. It's so crucial to cultivate a relationship with him. It's so crucial to be active in your relationship with him. You will not experience the joy of Jesus Christ without a relationship with God. You will not reap the benefits of what he has. The joy that gets presented in your life, you will not see that if you do not have a relationship with God. See, that in itself, that you will not experience the joy of Jesus if you don't have a relationship with him, that should fire you up. That should fire you up, and it should make you desire to know who God is. It should make you desire to cultivate a relationship with him, because joy is so hard to come by in this day. It's so hard to come by in this world. And let me tell you why, because you can't achieve joy from the world. It comes from God. And like I said, the church attendance is dipping. The church, the outlook on people who claim to be Christians is starting to go down. The people who actually have a relationship with Jesus is starting to go down. That's why joy is so hard to come by nowadays. Because we don't let Jesus control our lives. We don't let Jesus take control of our lives. We don't let Jesus work in us because we don't have an active relationship with God. We don't have an active relationship with God. But when we know God, when we have a relationship with him, we know peace, we know love, we know joy. I could go into a whole nother topic about that, a whole nother sermon, if you will, about that. But we become a whole different person centered around Jesus when we have a relationship with Jesus. And that is the biggest thing that you can take away from this message, is that Jesus changes our whole lives. Jesus changes our whole lives when we have an active relationship with him. When we have an active relationship with God, our whole lives change. Our whole perceptions of life changes. The fruits of your labor will be on display whenever you live your life through Jesus. When you live your life through Jesus, you will reap the benefits of what God has to offer. The work you put in to a relationship with Jesus is what dictates your relationship with him. So I encourage y'all, put in work. Put in work. Christ does not call us to be idle. Christ does not call us to sit around while he is trying to work in our lives. He calls us to be active. He wants us to pursue him like he has been pursuing us from the beginning. He wants us to pursue him. So you have to watch who you surround yourself with. You cannot let people who are idle get into your life and tear you away from Christ. You cannot let that happen. You have to watch who is chasing after God, and you have to watch who is remaining idle. You have to know who in your life is going to lead you closer to God and who's going to tear you away. Surround yourself with the people who will pull you closer, because you will never achieve joy if you don't have God. You will never achieve joy if you don't cultivate a relationship with him. So my question to you today is, are you idle or are you active? Are you idle or are you active? There should be a Q&A at the end of this episode if you're watching on Spotify. If you're watching on YouTube, you can put it in the comments, or you can find us on Instagram and direct message if you want to talk about this. Are you idle or active? Are you idle or active? Do you struggle with this? Because, sometimes, before I got my call to ministry in September, I struggled so hard with this. I struggled so hard with this. I'm like, am I just a part-time Christian? Am I really? And it tore me apart to know that I was letting the things of the world and the people of the world dictate my walk with God. So I encourage y'all, if you need to talk, Instagram's open, the YouTube comment section is open, the Q&A at the end of Spotify is open. We just recently launched a TikTok, that's open. If you need to talk, I encourage you, reach out. Reach out and ask questions. That's what this podcast is here for. It's here to lead people to Christ. And if you need more information about how to be idle or active, more than already 30 minutes worth, please reach out. I don't care if it's 2 a.m, 3 a.m, I don't care. Reach out. It's a great day to change if you are idle. It is a great day to pursue God and be active in your faith. Who knows? You could be struggling with this as you're listening to this right now. You could have been thinking about this for months, and this is your sign. Be active. Be active in your relationship with Christ. And normally I closed out the first episode with prayer. I didn't for the second two, or the second and third. This one I'm gonna close out with prayer, just because this is such a powerful thing. This is such a powerful, and it's such a terrible, it's so heartbreaking because it's so prevalent in today's day and age. It's so prevalent in our youth ministries. It's so prevalent in our day-to-day walk in our country. It's so prevalent. And we just need a moment of prayer. And I wasn't going to do it. I wasn't going to, just because we hadn't closed it out. But I'm going to pray with y'all, and we're going to end this episode. So, Heavenly Father, thank you just for the opportunity to just come and just speak the word, speak your word, God. Thank you for giving us a layout of how to follow you. Thank you for everything that you have done, for your deliverance, for your love. Thank you, God. I pray that if anybody on the other end of this screen or anybody on the other end of this phone is struggling with idleness, that you just grab them and allow them to know that you're there. Place people in front of them. Place the guides in front of them, God, that will lead them closer to you. Allow them to understand that they will lose friends whenever they try to follow you, but you are so much more worth it than that, God. I pray that you just lay your hand on them and lay your hand on their heart and allow them to know that you are there and you are constantly and consistently going to be there for us, God. I pray that anybody who is struggling with idleness just ceases to struggle, God. Allow them to be active. And it's in your precious holy name I pray. Amen. Thank y'all for listening, watching. Just be active, guys. Be active. Like I said, this is a more serious episode, but be active, guys. And thank you guys once again. And I hope to see y'all in the next episode. Peace, guys.